Hey, how's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Once again, here we are in our virtual home studios and spaces all around the world. Well, probably not all around the world because we're not that famous, but people are listening, people pay attention, you know what I mean? Anyway, I'm here with my co-host. We got Lars here next to me. Whoop, there he is somewhere.
What's up, everybody? Here we are. Nice to see and listen and have you hear our voices and see our faces and exchange senses. Yeah, we're all doing good. Thank you. It's good to be here. I'm behind me. You see my album cover right here. Coming to theaters everywhere, and I'm wearing my pizza shirt and my cool sunglasses as always. So it's good to be here, everyone. Yeah, and now we'll kick over to my other co-host here. Give it up for Trey the actor, Trevor Ketcheson.
Yeah, you are looking sane as ever, Lars. If you could take a screenshot of somebody who is looking at most sanity through this, that would be it. That's the look right there.
Don't I look like a guy who's entered the World Series of Poker? Like I'm just like.
No, you look like a guy in the Pizza Hut witness protection program. It's like you sent back too many coupons. We're sick of delivering to your house. Hide. We're looking for you. You know what I mean?
Right. Thank you.
Domino's
I am excited.
Like, we'll take them in.
Truth be told, everyone, I'm going to let the cats out of the bag here. About 5 to 10 minutes ago, we all showed up, and Trev was wearing the shirt he's wearing, and I got insecure about my normal shirt, and I had to be at least on cool level as Trevor. So, Trevor,
well, because it wasn't even a shirt that was doing anything unusual. It was very normal, so it has to be at least something to get. I mean, Bruce could probably eat your shirt now, but that's irrelevant.
Describe that shirt for the listeners.
The listeners, what they're not seeing is a Bruce Lee shirt that was purchased for some odd reason. And when I was in grade 7 at like Pacific Mall, I was like, that's the shirt I need in my life.
You've owned that shirt since you were in grade 7?
Yeah, I got it like as a way back, playback. Yeah.
It's big on you though. Like it's huge.
Yeah. Can you imagine? I would fly around like a magic car. I actually hung it on my wall as like a poster for years. I don't really wear it. So.
Is it made of silk?
It's kind of like a silk, yeah. Like
it's kind of like a silk.
It's beautiful.
That's, ladies and gentlemen, that's code for it could be made of anything, and he has no idea.
When you hopped onto the show and I saw it, I said to you, I was like, that is the shirt of the year of the podcast right there. You won. This is just my futile attempt to be like at least on par with you with my pizza shirt.
Well, speaking of going way back in time in my life, I'm really excited for this episode because, since we started getting regular guests on, we've been getting a lot of colleagues and people in our community. But today we've got somebody who goes back a long ways with me, and I want to introduce our guest here tonight. The one and only from around the world and back again, Phil Kingston.
What's up, boys? Thanks for having me, gents. Yeah, I've been friends with Trev for what is it now, man? It's at least 15 years, right?
Yeah, well, you probably more because we lose track. It's hard to keep up, especially in the last few years. I was probably, I think, about 15.
Yeah, it was grade 9, wasn't it? Grade 9 we met. And I can attest that you had that shirt for as long as I've known you.
Wow.
You kept it in great condition.
Yeah, actually, I lost it at the grade 9 dance at Northern. We snuck in, and I left it down at the cafeteria, and Matt Atatui somehow miraculously rescued it, told me, and I had to go to his place in St. Clair West, and he had it there. And I got it. He gave it back. I'm like, first of all, you rescued it. Second of all, you gave it back.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn.
Yeah, that's miraculous for sure. Those grade 9 dances, they got pretty wild. Oh boy.
Bruce Lee, he's come a long way with you. How many times do you think Bruce Lee's moved with you?
Well, how many times? I've moved a bunch, right? Like more than more than a handful. So a couple of handfuls of times. It's been number one on the list. Because
So I know Phil's got some stories locked and loaded. I happened to meet Phil. I know Phil's one of your old school buddies. I got to meet him at some of your parties. I met Trev through the acting world and then started hanging out with him and some of his buddies. So by extension, I remember showing up to a handful of random house parties, and you were there, Phil, where we got pretty like in style of the day with with all the boys, got pretty licked.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Trev and I, we've kind of we've like had periods where we hang out all the time, and then sometimes it'll be like months, man. Like last time I saw you, I didn't even have a mustache.
Yeah, no,
No,
this is definitely up there in terms of one of the gaps. I don't know what it is, and like, but the work too. When we were working, like it was getting difficult because for all our viewers out there who don't know, and unless things have changed, you're still with the MS, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, dude. We both have like these odd work hour jobs, and so that kind of that hurts the socialization. But we've definitely had some legendary parties and some legendary moments, without a doubt, man. Like I was saying, I watched your episode with Cam. That really brought me back, man. Just seeing you two boys talking about all the wild times and the parties and everything else.
And all it takes is like one or two of you to get together, and then bam, you're right back again.
For the listeners, that's episode number 20. It's called Violently Ill. You can go listen to there's a couple stories. Sophie is a guest on that one, and Cam.
Sophie is a guest in that episode as well, yes.
They both talk about some Trevor stories. That's one of the most fun things about meeting new people. Like obviously everyone has old friends, but then you meet people along the way. But for me I met you later in life, Trev, but then I meet like your high school buddy, Phil, or same thing. We meet you, Bob, and then we meet Rich. It's funny to meet, you meet other people's old timey friends, and you kind of realize we're all the same. Like we all have, it's like we're just alternate, like parallel versions of each other almost.
Yeah. The third degree of separation really doesn't mean much. It's like, you notice really quickly how close people are to each other when it comes to behavioral patterns amongst groups of friends and stuff. It's like the same stories repeat over and over again through our social groups. It's just the nature of how people meet each other. Like we probably wouldn't know each other if there weren't some commonalities, right? It just makes a lot of sense.
Right. And I think that's always been a thread on this podcast, and when people listen to the stories, what they relate to is everyone has party stories, everyone has booze stories, everyone has drunk, disorderly stories, especially growing up. It's just something. Oh, yeah. And then with you, obviously, so Phil, when Trevor and I met Bob, and everyone who knows this knows, we would all tell our stories, and we're all telling stories of goofery and drunken disorderly party type stuff. But Giant Bob, of course, his stories are going to trump ours. So every story that he told would just blow. Like you can almost to the point where if you're in a circle of guys having a drink or smoking joints and everyone's telling their crazy story, you almost by default have to go last. Otherwise, the guy going after you is just like, well, I don't know what I'm going to say after his story.
Yeah, that's been my impression watching these episodes. It's like, Bob, you're a fucking wild man. Like, I don't know you follow that shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'll go ahead and tell you boys my wackiest story, but that's just like that ain't shit. Like compared to some of the stuff I heard you talk about.
All right, well, you know what? So I read your bios and your overview. So let's jump into that. I mean, I'm really interested. I think that was a really compelling story, and I want to know how you became known as a goon.
Yeah, man. Yeah, this is a story I like. It's a throwback to the travel days when I was a younger man, and I was going through Australia at the time. And you know, when you're traveling, it's so easy to make friends, right? Like, just a bunch of like-minded people, often around a similar age. You're all in this foreign land together. So making friends is super easy. And, well, sometimes it's like, well, hey, we're all going the same direction, so may as well travel together, right? And Trev probably knows about this. I know he's got his times in Europe and everything else on the old backpacker trail. But that's what was going on, and I ended up in this group of like, you know, about 8 people, guys and girls, and we're moving up the Australian coast there. And when you're hanging out in Australia, and especially when you're on like a budget as we were, you're looking for the cheapest booze you can buy in the store, right? To party and drink at.
Sure.
Yeah. And well, in Australia, the cheapest booze they've got is this boxed wine called GOON. GOON.
You know the best part about it is, Phil, I 100% believe you, because I used to drink these tall cans of a malt liquor called Muskrat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And man, 13%, like fucking, like the mini king cans, but like the big fat stubby mini king cans, The ones that don't sell anymore because they're too much beer, they're basically illegal.
Right.
Especially when they're like 13% malt liquor. But yeah, so I know what you mean. I totally believe you. Goon, I love that. Australia, thank you, Australia. Anyway, continue with your
I wonder
penal
what
colony
goon
story.
means in Australian slang.
Yeah, is it the same thing there? Is it like a fighter, like same?
I mean, I think so. Like, I don't know why it was called GOON. I still don't to this day know why.
Any graphics, anything to indicate in the writing of it?
They tried to make it like
that's our question to the internet there, boys and girls. Those of you out there in the internet world, I want you to see if you can figure out what the hell Australians think the word goon means, because if it has a different meaning than it does here, that's really interesting. Anyway, sorry, Phil, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Well, I did actually. I think I remember someone was telling me while I was there that like it was the Aboriginal word for pillow. I think it's a bunch of bullshit. I think someone was just fucking with me because, in like a box of wine, they've got the bag. And so a little life hack is when you're done the box of wine, you take out the bag, you like reinflate it, you just blow into it, and then it's a pillow that you can rest your head on.
That's hilarious. Wow. Okay, I'm pulling it up here.
That's amazing.
For context, let me pull it up on screen. One sec, just so we can all see it. I'm going to share.
Bring it back. Show me a box.
Because when you're done a box of wine, you're definitely going to need to lie down.
Oh yeah.
Okay. There it is. Is that it?
Oh, that's it, baby. That's yeah.
Was it the white? It was the white wine.
Oh, they got all sorts, man. They got all sorts. Every kind of wine you want.
Goon.
They've got a goon variation of it.
Many backpackers drink it almost daily.
Accurate. Yeah.
Right there in the description. There in the description. The very first sentence.
It's god awful. It gives you vicious hangovers, but the price is right. So we were pretty enthusiastic about it at the time.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Wow. So listen to this. Most people in Australia know about it. Many backpackers drink it daily. Basically, goon is a general name for cask wine or boxed wine. There are mixed opinions about goon. On the one hand, it's a cheap drink that tastes good, ice cold, or mixed. On the other hand, it can be disgusting.
It's always disgusting.
On the box of one brand, Golden Oak, it says produced with the aid of milk, egg, nut, and fish products, and traces may remain. Sugar added.
Yeah.
So that's like literally sugar over top of everything, and you take a sip and you're immediately hungover.
That brings me back too, because that's what people would say. They're like, "This shit's made with like milk and eggs, man. Like this isn't good wine. This is fucking milk wine. Like it's not good for you."
What does that even mean? Milk and like.
I have no idea.
That means milk and eggs. You just let them go sour and they turn into.
No, it means they're fermenting them in containers from whatever. So you're fermenting whatever it is you're making the wine out of. It could be berries of any kind, or grapes, or some kind of citrus. Could just be citrus pouches. Who knows?
Whatever the cheapest way to produce it was, that's what they did.
Yeah, a little bit of antifreeze.
Milk and eggs, rotten milk and eggs it is.
So did you guys push it to the brink? Like, did you humanly consume as much as possible?
Yeah, so like, eventually you acquire a taste for it, right? It's not so bad.
How much was it? Was it cheap? It was cheap?
It was cheap. It was very cheap. Like the box is 4 liters or something, and I forget how much exactly it was, but it's like, $8-10 for 4 liters of this wine.
Wow.
So you really can't go wrong when you're on a budget, and you learn to love it because it's so fucking cheap.
So you're sort of, as you're backpacking through the country, you're also sort of using it as water, right? Like.
That's right, man. You got to stay hydrated. Australia's hot. you gotta be drinking that beer.
And you gotta go to work to get your pillow for the night.
Yeah. I saved so much money on pillows down there, man. It was crazy.
I love that.
Yeah. So, you know, we're drinking this, like my little travel crew and we're moving the same direction along the coast, and we're drinking this goon like all the time and just having good nights. And one of the nights we were drinking it, someone just remarked like, yeah, you know, we never make it to the bar because, you know, we don't have the money and we don't have a bartender, but we've got goon, and well, we've got the Goontender, and points at me like, why? I don't know. I guess I like brought all the goon that night or something. But that person unknowingly dubbed me for the first time the Goontender. And we furthered the joke a little bit where like I would pretend to take it really seriously, like my role as the Goontender, and act all professionally. And basically what I do is if you wanted some goon, well, you would just, you know, get the attention of your Goontender, and I would come around, you'd cock your head back, and I would just pour way too much wine in your mouth. And that was kind of the signature move. There's nothing to it. It was just a cheap laugh, right? It's like you request the Goontender's service, and I come, spray a bunch of wine in your mouth. It usually spills all over the place. We have a chuckle, and the night carries on. We got so into it that like, I don't know, we were just really we were really about that theme for a while. So like eventually our parties, we wouldn't even have cups, man. Like Goontender was on duty. Like you don't need a cup. You just need these bags of fucking wine. And we were doing that a lot. We took the show on the road. We were going to different towns and like doing the Goontender parties and getting other people in on it. And it was just a fun little novelty. It was kind of like a hit. Doing it at the beach during the day, and like many nights for a few weeks we did this, and it was just a good time until the few weeks ran up, and like, you know, as you guys may know, that moment came when you with your travel friends where it's like, well, shit, this is sort of the end of the road. Everyone's got to go their separate ways, right? Like it's time we take our own paths again. And well, the Norwegian girls went north, and the Danish guys went wherever the fuck, and I had some time on my hands, so I stayed just where I was. I stayed put for a couple weeks, and that was it. You know, teary goodbyes. It was like I was not only saying goodbye to these new travel friends, but saying goodbye to my new identity as the Goontender, because you know you can't recreate that shit, right? Like, so that was it. But so I thought.
I was like,
chapter 2.
I was like, no, the Goontender can't die. This can't be the end of the story.
The Goontender never dies, man. He lives on.
It's like that false ending at the end of the movie when like the credits like think are gonna roll, then all of a sudden there's another scene. You're like, what?
Hands burst through the dirt. Yeah,
it can't be over. I love the Goontender. No.
Yeah. So eventually I did leave that town because, you know, whatever, I wanted to see new things. And I go north to just whatever the next town I heard had some fun shit to do. And I'm in this town. One of the things they had was like you could take a kayaking day trip, right? So I decided to do it. I'm on this kayaking day trip with a bunch of people I don't know. But same as before, easy people to get along with, you know, just like-minded traveler types, right? So we're kayaking, we're doing it. And halfway through the day, we get to this island where it's like our lunch break, and the Australian kayak guide dude like busts out some food, you know what I mean, for lunch. And then he also breaks out just like a shit ton of goon. Immediately, I'm like having flashbacks and getting sweats and stuff.
The goon.
Yeah, like these people don't know my past. So, he busts out the goon and whatever. I'm just having a good time sitting back. And this one girl who was there, and I was kind of hanging out with this British chick, very attractive young lady, I might add. She turns to me and she's like, I was hanging out with these Norwegian girls a few days ago, and they're telling me about how they used to hang out with this guy they called the Goontender, and like during the parties he would just like pretend to like be a bartender and goontend the party, and apparently all he would do is just pour goon in people's mouths, but it was a lot of fun. And man, I wish we had a guy like that here right now. And I was like, lady, I am the Goontender. Blew her fucking mind.
I am Batman. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Dropped a huge bomb on her. So needless to say, I Goontended the duration of the afternoon. And later that evening, hooked up with the British girl in a van.
The Goon way.
Yeah.
I have a question. Goontender.
Goontending your way to van sex. That's awesome. I like that.
That's it, man. The Goontending life. It's all about women and slow cars.
First of all, the name Goontender is such a good name. This episode, by the way, episode 38, there's nothing else.
It's called Goontender, obviously.
That's the only thing.
And which is great. It makes it so much easier when we have a name like this for an episode. Otherwise, I have to listen to the whole episode and then figure out what we should call it. This is great.
Wonderful.
I love how Goontender is like, to me, it's like half bartender, half goaltender, goon. Like there's sort of a three-way like kind of goon, bartender, goaltender. Like I don't know, when you hear Goontender, do you think hockey or do you think bartender?
I think of really bad, cheap wine hangovers. And good friends that I haven't seen in a long time.
When they first called you the Goontender, was there like a resonance? Like, did you know at that point you were like, yes,
yeah,
I am the Goontender? Like, it seems like you rose to the occasion immediately.
Yeah, exactly. There was that moment where the background kind of faded away and it zoomed in on my face. And there's this like angelic chorus, and I knew my destiny at that moment was to spray wine in people's mouths. I took my role very seriously.
It's brilliant.
Hey, that's good. No, that's amazing. I mean, that's the whole point. If you're gonna have fun with anything, any like little travel identity, that's the best way to do it, man. Just own it.
Yeah, well, that's my favorite part about it, right?
Fun.
It was like a fun little travel identity, and just that moment when I realized that like word had spread and there were like strangers who had heard of me. I was just like, oh my god, like I'm fucking famous. This is happening.
You're like, oh my god, I'm a legend.
Yeah, that's right. This must
the legend swept across the countryside.
Yeah,
from town to town, from what do they call them? From saloon to saloon.
Yeah.
It whispered across the tumbleweeds of Western Australia.
That's right. Yeah. So obviously I reported back to the boys who are part of my Goon squad to let them know that I'm being recognized like in different towns, and they all got a kick out of that.
Oh man, Goon squad, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone
That's
else?
awesome.
Has anyone else been a legend like Goontender? Bob, you are. You're like a legend, Giant Bob.
You're a living, walking legend. That's why we're doing this show.
People have stories about you, and they don't really know you, like your myth. Legend.
We should have brought up a Cam, but at one point Cam was the champion.
The champion?
Yeah, because he allegedly, self-proclaimed himself after he outdrank everybody at one party.
Cam the champion.
That sounds really familiar.
Yeah, like,
was I there for that?
It's not. It was at Amanda Basinski's, and it's not something for Cam to do. Like, he's not somebody to outdrink everybody and then proclaim that he outdrank everybody and then rub it in everyone's face. So it was just completely out of character. And like, no one even think he did outdrink everybody. It's just he was really going for it in terms of like our drinking that night. And this was like high school or something.
Yeah.
Like, he was just like lambasting us with the champion. And so after that, we would always rip on him as being the champion. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking
about. I remember now, Lars, when I first met you, when we were talking earlier, it came back to me. It was at Cam's place. It was at Cam's parents' condo. You remember that place?
I remember too. Yeah.
Yeah. And you showed up with you showed up on your own with a bag of, what was it, party mix?
Party mix.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, I heard it's the party, so I got some party mix. And I was like, this guy's all right.
That's all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The man with the party mix is always all right. Everybody knows that. I mean, that's just common sense.
Right. I came to party. Yeah.
I think I stole that move at one point myself as well.
It's a solid move. I mean,
You know,
the main thing is ideally don't show up empty-handed. I mean,
Yeah.
that's always it's always, you always feel good and you do always make an impact if you're able to bring something to the party. That's the brilliant thing about being someone like the Goontender. You're beloved by the party. You're basically the party supply. Like your supply, like you.
When they're like trying to figure out who to bring and what to bring, and they're like, well, we need the Goontender, and like you're a must.
You made yourself indispensable and beloved to the point of legend.
That's it.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. Just position yourself.
I was never the Goontender, but I did get a reputation. I was a goon, but I did get the reputation for also being able to provide connections to anyone for anything at all times.
Right.
Because of where I was working. It had nothing to do with even my interest in dealing in that world. It was just, well, I know a guy, or I know a guy, or I know a guy. And at one time I knew so many guys, I suddenly realized like I might be a drug addict. I was like, wait a minute, I know a lot of guys.
You're like, I know too many guys with weird nicknames.
And then you hang out with them.
Have nicknames.
Then you hang out with them.
solve so many people's problems by knowing a guy.
Well, that was the funniest part. That was exactly it. It's like I'm standing at the door, and it's totally cliched, right? It's like something out of a bad movie. Someone walks up and taps you on the shoulder and goes, "Hey, man, can you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know a guy." You know, and when you say that for like the 20th or 30th time, and you realize you said it for the 20th or 30th time, but you mean it, oh man, a little bit of self-reflection is required. But anyway, I didn't ever bother with that. So I'm just saying, I'm preaching because I couldn't do it. No self-reflection. I just ran that road. It was fun.
Well, you have different skills. Your skill set is different. Obviously, your skill set in a party scenario needs to be involved in some security and some muscle, and you're part of the orderly side. You're part of the team, but in a different sense. You know.
Yeah.
Your skills would be wasted as a Goontender.
Absolutely. So I know the other side of the party, but I've also been at so many like after hours raves after getting off work and beach parties and things like that, where literally I'm the guy that goes to parties like that to lay flat on the beach and yell, "Goontender! Goontender!" Like I'm already whacked and I'm not going anywhere. I'm that guy. There's always one at every party. It's like I'm not doing anything anymore. I've done my fair share of hustling and running around. Now I'm just gonna lay on this beach like I fucking crashed here. You know, like a small plane has landed on this turf and I'm done now. You know? Yeah. That's more my style, that kind of event.
Sometimes
I've never traveled though. So those of you who are more travel, I mean,
I was gonna ask you, Bob, like how far have you been?
I've never traveled anywhere. Never. Not really. I mean, I've been all over, like, you know, different parts of Canada, but
which is more than most Canadians can say.
Have you been coast to coast in Canada?
I haven't been. I have been coast to coast, but I haven't been to every city. I've like passed through some provinces.
Gotcha.
There's a few you can skip.
Yeah,
I've never been anywhere in Saskatchewan that I thought was worth seeing. And that's
Saskatchewan
not
is just a highway. It's just a highway through Saskatchewan. That is Saskatchewan.
You kind of see a lot of it because it's there for a long time when you're going by. But
right, like
you can't
13
help
hours.
It, yeah.
You get the impression that if there's any more of this, I don't want to see it. You know what I mean? Like I've seen this now for like 9 hours. I'm done with this.
It's the best if you're a wheat lover. There's no better place.
Absolutely. If you're one of those
coast.
Yeah. If you're a land whale, like just going from one wheat source to the next.
We
just got a comment.
We have an
and you know
audience question. Do you think
the question was
in Toronto?
And you know what? I'm not going to confirm or deny the comment, but I'll tell you this from professional experience, almost certainly.
The question again was, do you think there are after hours in Toronto ignoring lockdown? So they were wondering, this is Sheps asking if there's like speakeasies operating in town.
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are many more than people would think.
I mean, there's people who just die for that kind of interaction, right? Like they do anything.
Well, also there's different levels of engagement to your clientele. So, I mean, you're dealing with a more complex issue than one. An after hours can't be described as one bar. It's not like any individual space. Every one of them is different. Some of them are crazy people's basements. Some of them are people's, garages for affiliates of various nefarious gangland personality types. Others are rented spaces. You know what I mean? Others are studios. It goes all through the gambit, right? So.
Yeah. What about you, Philly Blunt?
But I guarantee you there are a lot of places that are open. I would find it very difficult to believe otherwise.
Sheps is going to go to the nearest one located to him now. Philly Blunt, what about you? And for our listeners out there, I'm calling him Philly Blunt because back in the day, that's what his name was, because Phil could roll the best J's out of all of us. Anytime we needed something rolled, it was Philly. And then also the blunts rolled up on the scene, and there was a Philly Blunt, and we would smoke those. And Phil would roll them.
Philly, those are his two nicknames, Philly Blunt and Goontender. That's amazing.
Yeah.
He supplies the blunts and the goon.
Yeah, the high school nickname was really quite just a layup, you know what I mean? Once the Philly Blunts hit the scene. And it was always a showdown between me and our buddy Dennis for who could roll better. It was neck and neck,
man. You gotta get the filter was tight.
Yeah.
Fuck Dennis.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
I'd have totally been a group of friends. I had a totally different group of friends, but I absolutely had a guy in my group too named Nick. He was like the rolling machine. He was the guy who was like, yeah, okay, if anyone needs to get some roll, just get Nick roll it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I totally understand that.
Nick,
yeah, there's always somebody who has like the skills, you know what I mean? And there's always the weirdos that think they have the skills that don't. It took me forever to learn how to roll. I don't know. I'm one of those guys.
I still don't know how to roll a joint.
Yeah, some people never learn it. Some people smoke a ton of weed and just never really develop that skill, and either just rely on others or hit the bong. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the genius of the bong, right? It's like the Jesus Christ of pot smoking devices. It treats all men equally, right? We are all sacred under the Lord. He made that sacrifice for us. Just rip the bong.
Yeah. And if you don't have a bong, then just make a bong out of an apple.
And if you're deeply religious, I'm sorry to offend you with my blasphemy.
Yeah, exactly. But I asked you, Philly, because Bob, before we all kind of got locked in, Bob was amongst many professions. One of his things was holding down the door at an after hours. So when was the last time, Philly, what's your last interaction with an after hours, or what's your most memorable?
Oh man, I never really fucked with the after hours too much here.
I know it's always like one and done kind of thing, because it's like you only see 7 or 9 a.m. a couple times.
What about in Australia when you were the Goontender? There's everything must have been like on the beach or something. That's after hours all night long, isn't it?
Yeah, you didn't really need an establishment for that. Like
right.
The crowd would just stay up. You know what I mean? And there's always an extra box of goon laying around somewhere.
Goontender was nearby.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as the Goontender's around. Or what about Thailand? Maybe I know you spent some time there after Australia.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so I traveled for quite a bit after I made some money in Australia.
We were taking bets on whether Phil was coming home.
Dude, those were legit bets, because at the time I wouldn't really have known what to tell you either. You know what I mean? It was a toss up for a while there. I was gone for over 2 years in total.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good crack.
Yeah, I exhausted my work visas. That's kind of what led me to be like, fuck it, I had a good run, and then I came home. But in Southeast Asia, that was a lot of fun. I traveled there with my Australian dollar, which obviously goes a long way. But similar thing, they didn't need to have after hours establishments. It's just the same establishment you're at. They just don't fucking close.
It just doesn't close. Yeah. That's right.
if you're spending money at the bar, they just stay open for you. You know what I mean?
Oh, in a lot of places in the world, that's pretty much the standard. Like, I hear that's the same in Greece and in Crete and places like that too. It's like, well, we just don't close.
Yeah.
Most of Russia's like that. It's like, well, if you're in a bar and you're still drinking, they will stay open to sell you liquor because it's worth a lot of money to them to do so.
Yeah, it's part of the charm of those places too. Like, because there's just a lack of rules and restrictions and regulations that there are here in like North America. You know what I mean? Like, they're not getting
Oh,
busted.
I 100% know what you mean, man. I 100% know what you mean. I ate lunch in a public park today.
Yeah, how's that?
Yeah. For those of you who can't see the video footage, that's all of us scoffing because we're prisoners of pandemic. So we're not allowed to do things like sit on benches or talk to each other.
No, you get escorted
I
out.
think they're opening parks up now. Provincial parks are starting to be opened up. Maybe not like playgrounds and beaches and busy places, but you can go outside. You can do whatever you want. That's like you said, Bob. You're like, what's a cop going to do to you?
Well, it's not even that. It's not even that. I don't mean to put such a rebellious front on it because that's not really the case. It's not how I feel emotionally and intellectually. But it's like the look of taboo on people's faces. Like, they're walking their dog and they see a guy sitting there reading a book, eating a sandwich, and the look is like the same look you'd reserve for a guy who had, like, you know, a really bad case of syphilis and was jacking off uncontrollably next to the kindergarten. You know?
Yeah, it's like, you evil man.
Do you get
look at the blasphemer?
Because you're a 7-foot giant, you get a lot of looks regardless. Do you notice a difference now between those looks versus a COVID look? Like, is it?
Oh,
different?
yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah, for sure. No, like, look, when I just moved recently, like before this whole thing happened, like in December, I moved. So slightly new neighborhood. And when I was first walking around, it first got nice enough that I could sort of leave the house and meander around the neighborhood. People were looking at me like, oh man, who's this like giant biker looking cowboy hobo fucking, I don't know, serial child molester or something. Like, that's what the look I was getting off these women on porches and, like, you know, old people on their lawns, like, oh man, who's this guy? And then I slowly but surely introduced myself, and the giant fear went away. And giant fear is one of those things. I mean, it's just like anything else. Anyone who looks a certain way. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm like, you know, nearly 7 feet tall, very large, huge stature, like 450 pounds. It's massive, right? So people give a certain instant reaction to that, which I don't really care about. I mean, that's just them, and it doesn't bother me. In fact, I'm amused by it most of the time. But the COVID thing is different. It's this look of like the unclean. It feels like a religious devotional attack, not so much like a you look weird or different. It's like, how dare you do these insane things like sitting by oneself. And I know this is spawned by our mutual fears and our mutual uncertainties about the times that we're living through. But a little bit of simple common sense would never hurt in a situation like this. So, I don't know. I think we just have to take a deep breath and remember that, you know, we can just give it a second. It's not, you know, your neighbors are not out there to kill you. This is not an us versus them thing. This is us trying to deal with a problem as a community. So
We definitely need to unite, and there's definitely a lot of things out there that are implementations that could start to separate and displace people. So, you know, while keeping safe, we have to keep that united front, because I think that's the most important aspect, is that, yeah, together we will get through it.
And I think regardless, people need to be conscious of the energy they put out there. Like, do you want to be a person that, like, are you the snitch, tattletale, like shamer kind of person, or can you reasonably approach someone and make a recommend? Like, those are two different worlds too. But also, I think the more time any of us are spending time thinking about what other people are doing, the more we're just kind of lost in our own lives. It's like everyone kind of needs to just focus on doing your best, accept and hope that other people are also trying to do their best, and just let like
Just
live and let
focus,
live,
yeah,
basically. To
and
within
focus on
degree.
yourself. Yeah, but like take this time to like do your thing and don't
Right.
worry
Well,
about much what the
it's
people do.
Trav. It's more even than that, though. It's more than that. I think what Lars is saying, and I don't know if I'm hitting this in the mark, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think what you're saying is that right now it's more important than ever that we have the respect that we're not all fucking morons.
Right.
Like we can sort of handle this. So look, don't worry about what other people are doing. Just trust that they're not complete morons. You know, we're not all assholes. We're not all psychopaths. We're not trying to ruin your life. We're not trying to kill you. We don't want to kill grandma. You know, we're not.
Right.
That's not what's going on here. We're all going to try and social distance. We're going to do the best we can. We're going to do everything we can.
I'm
But
curious because
in a society like ours,
yeah.
it relies on trust. We're a high trust society. We have to trust that other people are going to do their best.
Yeah.
Otherwise, no. Otherwise, and you know what? Maybe they're not doing their best. But that's the risk that democracy always imposes. We're not judging. We're not crushing people for their ideologies. We're not controlling the flow of information. We're not, destroying people's right to think. But the consequence of that means sometimes some people make bad decisions, and that's just the way it's always going to be. And the rest of us have to be compassionate enough to let them make bad decisions and not shun them from the world, So that's how we'll get through this. Same way we always have. Some people will fuck up, other people will not. Those who care enough will make a difference, and everyone will survive. Those who don't survive are the tragic losses that life tolls out to every generation except ours. And now we're getting our taste of it. And I think we're in shell shock because of it. I mean, our parents' generation had polio and shit like that, right? So
yeah,
they had terrifying diseases in their midst all the time.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mention like on the front lines, like people often mention healthcare workers and stuff, but we have with Philly, we got the EMS worker. So it's like I'm interested to ask you, Philly, like what's it been like for you over the past 6 weeks or since mid-March, and what it was like for you in the day before and what it was like maybe after a big change?
Yeah, it's a trip, man, without a doubt. Like, yeah, I'm a paramedic. I've been a paramedic for 4 years, and there's definitely a big change, right? Of course, with this global pandemic setting in, you know what I mean? The nature of my day-to-day work has shifted a bit. Some calls don't go away. Like there's the calls that are still there, right? Like the mental health calls and the drug addiction calls, like they're still coming in. But now we just have to wear all this extra gear for one. Like going into any scene now, like you have to take that time, even if it's like a cardiac arrest. I got to take a couple minutes. Like a couple minutes is what it takes to properly don all that gear so I'm protected. You know what I mean? And in moments where seconds down, it's kind of a bummer. But you got to do what you got to do to stay safe. And like I'm driving around all day out there in the ambulance, and I definitely see on the streets, like lately, I'd say in the past week, I'm getting this impression that the enthusiasm for the lockdowns is kind of waning a little bit. Like it was easy
I would argue it's gone. It's gone. I've seen so many people who honestly, people are just out. They're just out now.
There's a lot of that, man, for sure. Like I think when the weather's nice too, it's going to be tough. You're just going to have to try to work with that energy. You know what I mean? People are.
We don't have like the cases, like obviously some places like New York and whatever, Italy, whatever, like anywhere else really. Like I don't really know because I'm not out there, but maybe like yourself can attest. Like we just don't have the same numbers, so it's like not in our face as much,
Yeah, and it's a good point, like bringing up those places, because the fact is, what we're doing at the end of the day is working because we've not become these places, right? We've not become New York City, for example. And like we're a bustling metropolis all the same. We're not in any way inherently superior to New York that allowed the virus to not hit us as hard. We just mitigated it through our efforts. And you're never going to get 100% of people on the same page. So yeah, you see people fucking off the rules and just doing their own thing. But at the end of the day, we've mitigated the spread of this thing in the city to a measurable degree. And that in itself, that victory is kind of a funny thing psychologically, because as we're seeing that victory, we're kind of like, it can feed into this temptation to just relax. You know what I mean? Because it's like, no, what's the big deal? Like this thing's fine. It's really not that bad. And then the weather's nice, and so people start hanging out. So it's interesting, man. It's like it's a weird social experiment, really, to observe. Like, yeah, it came upon us so quickly too, right? Everyone kind of made their own opinions about it. So
yeah.
Bill, another buddy of mine's a doctor at a hospital that hasn't really been affected in Coburg, but as a result, they have all the extra protocol. Every time anyone is ever inputted, it's basically like any symptoms treated as though it is. So it's just this extra layer that he's kind of felt, to a certain degree, it hampers you in treating all the myriad of other things because you have to take the extra time. Have there been certain instances where you felt like, yeah, the fact that I had to take that extra time affected that person getting timely treatment, or you haven't had dire situations like that?
yeah, it's hard to say. Like, to be honest, for me personally, like anecdotally, I've not had a lot of experiences where I'm rushing to put on this PPE and I feel like the patient is getting this like incredible disservice from it. But that being said, like those types of calls where the seconds count, to be honest with you, they're probably more rare than you'd imagine. Like
Right.
The run of the mill call is the kind of thing where like, yeah, this person needs to go to the hospital, but like, you know, if they go immediately or if they go kind of soonish, it doesn't affect their outcome drastically. That is kind of
I mean, also realistically
Yeah.
speaking too, right? For hundreds and hundreds of years, people suffered humongous trauma to body parts, limbs, damage from weapons and falls and accidents, and had no access to hospitals, and people still fucking survived. So what we consider today as like, you're going to die immediately, somebody 50 years ago would be like, no, you ain't. You ain't gonna die. You know what I mean? Like, just straight up, like,
Oh yeah.
amputations on the roadside, you know, shit like this. Though obviously it's not as common as we would like to believe, but yeah, people die. It's just, you know,
And
with
like
modern
the human
medicine,
body goes through suffrages, but it recovers.
well, with modern medicine too, most of the injuries I'd much rather be stabbed than shot.
Oh yeah.
Although I would rather be shot than bitten.
I'd rather be bitten, bro. Yeah.
Nope. Well, I'll tell you why. The gun specialists, the surgeons at hospitals,
Yeah.
man, they do miracle work with gunshots. But if you get, I mean mauled, like not just human bites. I mean like seriously mauled. If you get comparable damage, is what I mean by that.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I would rather be shot than bitten because they can put you back together pretty good from being shot. We have a lot of experience, like a couple hundred years of people getting shot and us stitching them back
And not to
together.
mention RoboCop. So I mean, yeah.
Yeah, they're
No,
around the corner, so.
My buddy got his ear bitten off, and they literally said there's nothing you can do. The wound's too ragged, it's too whatever. We can't stitch it back on. It's done. It's all fucked up.
Yeah, we all saw it. Mike Tyson got away with it.
This isn't a bar fight, just at Queen and Bathurst, but
It got bitten off? The guy got his ear bit off?
Yeah.
Was it pre-Mike Tyson or post-Mike Tyson?
I have no idea.
I wonder if it was inspired. Was it inspired by Mike Tyson?
It was this guy, you know, because his
see
thing
it?
in the we had to find the ear when we found it
Oh god. No.
Where was it?
on the floor under a table.
Did you do the joke from Robin Hood Men in Tights where you're like, hello?
No,
Just dust it off. It's so good.
no, I didn't.
Remember which ear? Was it his right ear or left ear?
I believe it
Does
was.
that matter?
But what does that matter? It was gross anyway.
I don't know. I'm just curious.
We used to go to this bar all the time, and yeah, we didn't end up going there that much after that. But in the summertime, there's like the punk scene is broken up into like three basic components, right? There's the city punks who live here all year round. There are like the punks that travel in for shows, and then there's the sort of hobo transient skid punk scene that arrives as soon as the weather warms up and stays basically until it's time to find shelter again from the Canadian, winter evil.
It's a seasonal migration.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys are insane criminals on the run. I'm not saying they all are. I'm not generalizing, but there's a very serious group of these dudes who used to fight all the time because we were the city boys, and these guys would show up, and they were the ear biter offers and the fucking, killing people in sleeping bags next to them with hammers in the middle of the night and train depot, shit like that, like really serious weirdos, I mean, if you're gonna.
Bob, like your ear biting story, it's just like a throwaway Big Bob story. Just like, yeah, got his ear bit off.
Totally, 100%. So,
Lars warned you.
And Phil, I think I want to explore this a little bit. I was just thinking the same thing. So we've heard an ear. I feel like we heard another. Was there a penis story at some point? Let's do a little tally. How many appendages? I'm sure there's fingers. I'm sure there could be a nose. We heard a story about a guy getting his face sliced off with an X-Acto knife. So his face
not off. He didn't slice it off, but it was like whoop.
So let's do
like
a tally.
Fish. Like it was. He had the fish gill, like it was cut down by the eyeball down to the chin. It was floppy.
He was doing his best Kevin Costner impression in Waterworld.
What's the checklist here? What's the checklist? We got.
Oh man,
we got ear.
So I told you the story. Okay, I told you the story. My uncle got bit on the dick by a turtle.
That's everyone's nightmare with snapping turtles is that they'll get you in the dick.
Yeah,
the snapping turtle. That's the best part. It wasn't even a snapping turtle.
Yeah.
They pissed this thing off. I'm not sure what episode that's in. I know I've talked about that, so you can find that on our podcast as well. I have fingers. I've seen fingers go. A lot of fingers go. I saw a finger garburated one time.
Oh.
Like it was already removed.
It's like some Scarface shit.
Yeah, was that the scenario? Like, was it on purpose or was it an accident?
It was on purpose. It was to make sure that we knew what we were into. So we were told to come to a meeting, and we didn't know why we were going. Me and my brother were going to this. My buddy went to this place, and we sat down at the table. And we're like, well, we don't owe you any money. We paid you up front. We're good. And like, yeah, I know you're good. Just sit here a minute. We're sitting there, and in the kitchen, there's some loud debate for a while, and then a noise like someone on a chopping block, and some really. And then they're like, okay, look over. And I'm like, I don't want to look over. It's like, just look over. And they're like, yeah. And that was because it was very important to know that he had failed to bring back the money that he was supposed to. And that we should never take debts or owe them anything. So I was like, don't worry. Don't worry. Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry.
I understand.
I won't. Yeah, I totally won't. Yeah.
That's fucking hardcore, man.
You were like, joke's on you. My fingers wouldn't fit down that carburetor. It would just be, the hole's not big enough. Look at the size of those meat hooks.
Hey, I don't care. Carburetors are gnarly. Sticking your hands into machinery, that just doesn't strike me as a good idea. Period.
So fingers, what else? Anything else? Nothing bigger? Like no foots or full hands?
I've never seen full hands, although I saw a guy put a table, so he was cutting with a hand saw, skill saw, like a circular saw, And he had taped the guard back so he could cut it on an angle.
Oh, that's a bad idea. He taped the safety guard? He fucked with the safety guard on it? Yeah, that's dumb.
That happens quite a bit, though, when you're working. You just have to,
you're just, free cutting.
But what he did, though, is he ran it really hardcore, cut the piece, and then put the saw down right away. And it ran over his foot.
Oh.
Because the saw has some forward, it's pretty good torque, right? And I'm like, wow! Have you ever seen chainsaw races? You can make saws belt sander races and stuff. You can make saws run down at the table.
That would be great. I would totally bet on sand.
Yeah, let's fire that up now that we don't have the NBA or anything. I'll bet on chainsaws right now.
I've seen arms so bad. I've seen arms so badly broken. I thought that if it wasn't for modern medicine, they'd probably be taken. And I've
Well,
seen
yeah,
like
in one of the episodes,
floppy spaghetti arm.
the episode's literally called Spaghetti Arms and Stalin's Fist. You describe hitting a guy's arms. Did he have a machete? Was he swinging a machete? A what?
He did, yeah. He broke one of the windows and was waving a machete around. So I hit him with a stanchion that you'd use to hang up one of the red ropes.
And he turned his arms into spaghetti. Yeah, that's great.
Well, it was just the one arm.
Oh, it was just the one arm, right? Right. Excuse me. Yeah.
He was holding the elbow, and the arms just flopping around like, you know. It was pretty gross. It was pretty gross.
Goontender. I have a question back to the Goontender.
Yes, sir.
Is there an example in your goontending career where you had too much goon, or whether it was actual goon or another alcohol? Like, do you have any like over the top, like you just got into it and things went bad?
Did anything go bad? Oh boy, you know what, man?
Did the Goontender ever get gooned?
I was always handled pretty well by my squad. They took care of me.
Right.
Yeah, I'm cursed with this trait where, like, when I drink, I remember everything. I don't black out, but then I just feel like I'm dying. I feel that like feeling of impending doom and death, and I'll puke it all up, and I'll like find my little burrow to go.
The sledgehammer of doom.
But I'm not like some people I know who will like black out and then just go on this form of autopilot and allow the antics to ensue.
Day was the master blackout antics. We had a guy back in the day. His name was Andrew Day.
Oh, Day.
And he would remember he would consume so much, but he would black out, but autopilot and just condition the night.
That's right. It. Like that's what I was gonna say to you, Trev. Is that who you need to invite is Blodens onto this show. A show about drunk and disorderlies. Like, Blodens got the rap sheet to prove it. Back when they would throw you in the drunk tank, they don't do that anymore, eh? The drunk tank doesn't exist.
But, no, I know.
Blodens had like a bed with his name on it in there. Like they reserved it for him. He had a stack of drinking tickets in his wallet. It was like a party trick. He'd pull it out and he'd have a dozen at like any given time.
That was like one of our episodes. A few episodes ago, we had comedian Marito Lopez on the show, and Marito was known at the drunk tanks. He was like every weekend for a year. I was in a drunk tank,
really,
in different cities, and he was like the Goontender, legendary from town to town.
I never spent any significant time in the drunk tanks. Never.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Like, no, the worst part is I was totally ridiculous. They just do like, we're either going to drive you and drop you off somewhere, or you're going to stay here and we're going to give you this ticket on your file, or we're going to shoot you with the big deer rifle because you're running through the bush naked like Bigfoot. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? But I never spent much time in custody.
That's good.
Very good. I was very happy about that.
Yeah.
Then again, you know what? Also, I'm usually pretty convincing when it comes to, well, what laws have I broken? I think it's important to tell me. And a lot of people forget that. Like, you really do have the right to question why you're being arrested if you haven't done anything wrong. Like, honestly. And be reasonable. If you really are a drunken maniac like I am, you probably don't have much to work with. But if you haven't done anything, there's absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I know a lot of cops. I know a lot of guys who work on both sides of the fence in this industry. And that's just how that goes. Like, I work in a gray market industry. I fall right in between the two groups of people. Like, I often, when I was young, and I was a young man, I did a lot of really stupid things for money because I was broke. So, like, yeah, you'll sell drugs, you'll fucking party, or whatever, just to pay the bills and have some fun. You know what I mean? But you get older and you realize a lot of the things you looked at and saw when you were young are just not the same. Not the same. Your priorities shift dramatically. You know what I mean? Just and I guess if you can get out of it with your principles intact, you're all right.
I do know what you mean, man. It's that coming of age shit.
I don't even know, what the fuck does that even mean? I mean, how do we express that? You know, maybe that's a question for everybody. on the podcast and everywhere else in the world. I mean, how do we express that coming of age? How do we decide who we are as people? And when we do, how do we come to terms with the gross realities that exist just inherently in that? I mean, these are big questions, I know, but I mean, I think that's what we're trying to explore with every episode of this show and every day of our lives. You know what I mean? It's just sort of a thing we're looking for. I mean, I am anyway. There's got to be some, I don't know, some function by which we can judge the character and quantity of our existences, because otherwise we've just lived a lot and have learned nothing.
So what would your hypothesis be right now?
Now?
Yeah.
You know, I'm more and more of the opinion that people are inherently decent and that we fuck up because it's more fun.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the times it's interesting. You talked about many times being younger and you're at that fork in the road, and one way is a little more exciting, like the safe, smart thing to do is this way, but the uncertain, crazy thing to do is that way, and you go down that path just for the story.
Well, some people enjoy, I don't know, tepid water. I want more. I want to see something. I mean, maybe that's just the escapism too. And that's why the drugs and the alcohol and everything else comes in, right? You fuel that madness, that drive towards difference, to strangeness, to the outside. You drive that on the substances. You drive that on the associations. You drive that on. I mean, I was hanging out with crazy fucking people, doing crazy fucking things. Crazy things don't seem as crazy when the people around you are doing crazy things all the time.
Right.
Yeah, the bar moves, the standard shifts.
Yeah, like that's the thing. When you were the Goontender, you seem like a really awesome, fun, responsible, normal dude. When you were the Goontender, you were drunk as fuck like everybody else. You were in a moment where everyone was having a party and they're in that zone. So there's absolutely no strangeness there. Now, if you went to, like, you know, somebody's bar mitzvah and decided to be the Goontender, there's a pretty good chance you get asked to leave by some very shrewd old ladies, right?
Yeah, I'd get thrown out like Jazzy Jeff out of the front doors of the Bel Air mansion.
Exactly, right? But that's what the thing. The normalcy with which most people take not experiencing life disturbs me. Like, the thing is, the stories all start by my mom passed away, and it kind of catapulted me nearly off the edge of sanity. And the rest of my story has been the slow crawl back. So instead of having this long trajectory to the bottom, it was kind of like I started out rock bottom, doing the worst I could possibly do, like mind-altering, physically destructive personal behavior. And I've been crawling back since. So in essence, that whole self-discovery is still a slow blooming process for me, to some extent. Hence, the things I do for a living are semi-permanent, and I don't know. I'm flighty and creative in that sense. I'm not sure what I want to do with the rest of my life. I'm not sure that anyone does.
I think parts of that feeling don't go away, man. It's those questions you ask and that like introspective view that you're asking these questions. It's that development of wisdom, I think, man. It's that path. Everyone's got their own path, but it's that path of aging, growing a bit older, and realizing certain patterns and trends, asking those questions, and gaining wisdom, man. That's what it is. That's why you can't. It's hard to be young and wise. You know what I mean? You got to be old and wise.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I love about this show, Phil, is we get to talk to people. Like, for me, I get to talk to people I don't know. And I get to have these conversations that I might not even have with people I do know. And that in and of itself gives me more wisdom on the human experience. You know, I don't have the education of a lot of people with a couple degrees or things like this, but I've spent a lot of time listening to people and experiencing people's lives through the stories they tell and through the things that I've seen of them. And it's really fun to have these exchanges, man. So thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, man.
Yeah, Bob, I think you talked and you mentioned sort of coming of age, or we sort of shifted into that coming of age. I think part of it is still seeking out that edge and that thrill and that vibrancy of life, but finding ways to do it that aren't self-destructive at the same time. I think that's what everyone realizes. Like, yeah, like nobody can party. You can't healthily party for 60 or 80 years of your life to that degree. You got to find, like for me, it was creative stuff. Like when I slowed down my drinking and partying by getting into stand up and acting. And that's how I got to act out, because I didn't have to be the drunk guy at 3 o'clock in the morning at a bar. And I was able to express my idiocy on camera or on stage and get paid for it instead of costing me money. So
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah,
what it is for everyone. It's like all the thrill seeking of partying and doing all those fun adventures. At the end of the day, I don't think anyone on their deathbed or when they're thinking of their significance of their life, you're not probably thinking of parties. You're thinking of the more significant moments and conversations that you had with people.
You know what? Not to put too fine a fucking point on it, though. If I could drink a fifth of whiskey, do an 8-ball of cocaine off some hooker's titties, and fucking do shots until 10:30 tomorrow morning, I probably would.
Right.
So despite the fact that, yeah, there might be wisdom in age and whatnot and what have you, there's a lot of shit that's just, it's more fun than people give it credit for. I'm sorry. It just is.
But what you just described is toned down compared to you in your younger years.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Down, he says.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So it's baby steps, like
Right.
you work your way from garb-rated fingers down to, coke off the hooker's titties. But no, I wouldn't actually do the coke off the hooker's titties. I've got a lovely lady. She loves me very much. I'm not interested in hooker's titties anymore. But I still probably would do the 8-ball. And if the titties were around, I'd look at them, but I wouldn't touch them.
Unless, your lady was like, go ahead, touch them. They look nice.
That's different. When permission is given, that's that.
That's true.
Besides, every honest girlfriend knows that your man's going to look at things that he sees. It's like hundreds of thousands of years of biological evolution. You can't stop it. It's like, what? That's like, trying to tell teenage boys, if you have wet dreams, just Satan, you're going to die. Your penis is going to fall off. It's like, really? Seriously, come on.
Come on.
Come on. Come on.
Come on.
Come on. Come on.
All right, so on that note, I mean, is there any further interrogating we have for the Phil?
I mean, I just want Phil to remember the Canada cards.
Oh, baby, I remember.
The Canada cards was a time in our history when I was at university, and our mutual friend Al came upon these cards that were all Canadian provinces, and it was this drinking game that we developed that, I don't know, it got everybody completely. We went from one coast to the other, and it was infamous that it would get people completely schmammered. And it was this, have you played the Canada cards game?
Yeah, it was really simple, wasn't it? It was a regular playing deck, but on the back, like you said, it was just like the individual provinces or whatever repeated on the 52 cards. And what it would be is you wouldn't be worried about the suit or number. It would be your turn, and you would just have to say province. You'd have to guess one, and and the card would be turned. And if that was your province, then you won. And if it was a different province, then you lost. And I don't remember what the stakes were, but yeah, you were just kind of there like
probably drinking either way.
Yeah, like Manitoba, and then it flips, and it's like Alberta. It's a big moment.
And then I think a couple of them they just said Canada on them, so you could wildcard guess, and you could say. It was your turn to guess, and you could guess Canada, and then someone would get it right and would be like, "Oh, everybody else drinks."
Yeah, it brought the house down. I guess we were kind of easily entertained back then. That's all it took. Those are great times,
Yeah,
man.
I totally remember the first like serious drinking game I ever played was the Star Wars Episode 1 drinking game. And so that was after the original trilogy. That Episode 1 is with Anakin as a little kid, right? And the pod racer and shit. Like, it was a piece of shit movie.
Jar Jar and all that bad script.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was some amazing shit. But the thing is, it had stuff like every time you see a Muppet, drink. Every time like the lead Jedi guy adjusts his clothing unnecessarily, drink. Every time someone uses a lightsaber, drink. Every time someone says pod racer, drink. Like, and there's this whole list of things. We were pretty nerdy, right? Like D&D guys and shit. So my buddy printed this thing off and we put the movie on. And our plan was to watch 3 of them back to back. We didn't make it through the first like 25 minutes of the first movie. We drank like 4 bottles of liquor and about 50 beers and could not play any more drinking games. And literally everyone in the room was just schmammered. And then I went to work. And I'm supporting Mike, and the Monarch Tavern. I'm supporting today. I'm wearing my Monarch Tavern cap. Love you guys. Hope you guys are happy and healthy. Hope your family's doing good. Just shouting out.
Shout out to the Monarch Tavern, in Little Italy, Toronto.
That's right. If you don't know where it is, you'll probably won't find it. So don't worry about it. You'll find it. Don't worry.
We should do our social shout outs. Make sure to follow Big Bob at 39DD Show. It flips up on the screen, but that's the 39DD Show Instagram thing. You find Bob's stories there.
Yeah, I occasionally just show up and say something totally fucking random from wherever the fuck.
Yeah, it is very random. And if you want to hear something completely unexpected, tune in because they're great.
Earlier today, he was building the fence with his dad, digging fence post holes and sticking big, giant fence posts into them.
Yep.
Great. Yeah.
Occasionally I mention what I'm reading and then I don't mention it again. It's like, it's not a thing. It's like, it's random. It's totally random. So my random thoughts at random times.
I want to thank Philly Blunt for making his appearance, his debut on the show. We owe it all to K-pop. We wouldn't be here without it.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. It was my pleasure. It was fun chatting with you boys.
Yeah, it's good to see you. And we salute the Goontender.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely, Phil. Thank you so much, brother. It was great to meet you, man.
Yeah, you too, Bob.
Oh, it's awesome, dude. Thank you. I really appreciate you coming on.
2 ungarbrated thumbs up for the show, fellas.
I look forward to the time that we can all be together and you can actually be the Goontender proper.
You know what? That's a great idea.
I will drink so much boxed wine with you. You have no idea.
Hell yes. When this lockdown is lifted, I'm buying boxes of wine. You got the party mix, and we're gonna do this thing. No cups allowed.
Yeah, I haven't mentioned this, but my friend came back from Cuba right before this shit locked down. Oh. I have a Cuban cigar and a little bottle of rum. It's a tiny one of those little air travel ones. Just waiting and ready for the day that we could like declare victory. So yeah, that same day when we Goontend, I will also smoke a fat Cuban cigar and like fucking drink a rum.
You can all meet in a park or I guess not a park, but soon a park, but an alley or a parking lot.
An alley right behind your studio, isn't there?
Stand at a distance. Yeah. And then you just have to take the box of wine and kind of like do this so it just flies out into our mouths.
I got to get the 6-foot spray. I'll work on my technique.
No. Funnel on a hose.
Right. BYOH. Bring your own hose.
Yeah.
No. You just bring a cake. Everyone cuts the bottom off a 2-liter bottle, and then they have their own funnel. You just pour the wine through his into your funnel. So just bring your own funnel.
Smart. We're COVID-proofing the party right here. This we could put together like how to COVID-proof your party. for the
Yeah,
reopening.
You can still do fucking keg stands and shit. Just everyone has to bring their own funnel.
I like it.
Because then you can pour anything. You carry a bottle around, just pour it into their funnel. Right?
But for now, stay the fuck home.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go.
On the company line.
Yeah. Right. All right.
All right,
Are
friends.
we gonna say goodbye,
Yeah, I think we are.
everyone?
Have a good night.
Bye.
Thanks again, Phil. It was really great
Okay.
to meet you.
Yeah.
Trevor,
yeah.
Larson, we love you guys.
Yeah,
Great to
buddy.
see you. Yeah, we'll chat soon.